Good evening. I want to talk a little bit tonight about the subject of cosmic horror and the way that fictional horror is a great metaphor for our world, what a lot of us are experiencing in the world these days. A few years ago, I made a video called Voting and Vampires that it's the only video to date that YouTube canceled on my channel. You can find it on my Odyssey channel, and in that video I discussed how the needlecraft of, post 2020, 2021, that was related to a vampire agenda. And I want to elaborate a little bit about that tonight, because in media, in fictional media, television shows, movies, this vampire agenda has been rolling for a while, and they've been giving us hints along the way where the mythos of the vampire is mixed with biochemical facilities and medical facilities. One of my favorite shows, Hemlock Grove, paints this picture very well, where a billionaire vampire inherits the keys to a biomedical facility where they do all kinds of very strange experiments on all kinds of people and creatures and whatnot. But also, like, there was a show called Dracula that came out on Netflix in 2020, which shows a connection between Dracula and a biomedical facility. They're studying his blood. And of course, as I touched on in that video I made, Voting and Vampires, the story of Dracula, where Lucy and Mina are preyed upon several times, and after each time they change a little bit. There is a change in their blood where the mRNA slowly changes their own DNA structure to where they become something like Dracula, something like a vampire. And the implications for all of this are frankly horrifying. To think that there could be an agenda out there to turn people into creatures of the night. There's also the whole zombie mythos, and zombies have a direct connection to the vampire. They are often the slaves of vampires. There's the concept of the vampire thrall, which is very much akin to a zombie. And, shows like The Walking Dead. I remember being 16 years old, and I was a little bit obsessed with zombies, and I had this book called The Zombie Apocalypse Survival Guide or something like that, and it was just kind of like a cute little prepping book, but the zombie narrative was, it was really mainstream. And what this does is it almost sets people up to become zombies. Not consciously, but it, I mean, you can just see what's happened since the late 2000s. The rise of the smartphone, and everyone's looking at their smartphone and not paying attention to what's going on, and doom scrolling and all of that. It's like, make no mistake about it, we are dealing with sorcery here, a technocratic sorcery agenda where, through frequency, through medication, through the food we ingest, through our, the poisoning of the air and the water supply, we are changing as a species. And it's not good. The concept of Frankenstein's monster is another very poignant metaphor for what is happening, because that story is so applicable to so many aspects of modern culture. I mean, you could say that this entire civilization we've built is a Frankenstein monster. Of course, the gender bending agenda is very Frankensteinian when you consider that people are undergoing surgeries to alter their body and defy the creator of the universe by doing so, by lying about what they are. And yeah, the vampires and the mad scientists are really, ruling the roost here. And they're all, in defiance of the creator of the universe. And they want you to be like them on a lower level. Because if you adopt their mindset of social Darwinism and this defiance of a natural order of things, natural law, then you will naturally then look up to them who are playing that game way better than you are. With way more resources and way more knowledge than you have. So the concept of the mini-me Satanism, as Mark Passio talks about, is very real, where you have people, emulating this psychopathic sorcery class. I see this in my own life, where I have members of my own family who got married, and they dressed up as vampires to get married. And the vampire novels when I was growing up were were very big. You know, the whole Twilight series. You know, every freaking girl in class had that book. You know, even my first date I ever went on was to a Twilight movie, and that was all about the romanticization of the vampire. And well, I don't think it's any coincidence that people are becoming more selfish, more self-involved, more dog eat dog, and just all around, you know, narcissistic, psychopathic, um, because of all of that. It's been romanticized. You know, even Dracula, the story of Dracula, you know, romanticizes the vampire quite a bit. Um, I've always thought, you know, being the vampire slayer was, you know, looking up to Van Helsing was the better, you know, character to look up to in that story. And don't get me wrong, I know all about the story of Vlad the Impaler being the, you know, the hero of, you know, a national hero to his people, the Wallachians, against the Ottoman Turks. But then, you know, he was raised in the Sultan's dungeon of the Turks, the Ottoman Turks dungeon, and it, it's said that he was exposed to horrors in that dungeon, you know, torture and whatnot, that you know, imprinted on him a certain, you know, bloodthirsty disposition. And thus we get the character of Dracula. And I've heard people say that, you know, he was demonized because he was a hero, and that he was demonized so that as the monsters that he actually hunted. But anyway, that's sort of off topic. Another aspect of this whole cosmic horror phenomena I've seen in my own personal life is the I was raised in a very atheistic environment, a town that was, you know, very atheistic. Most of my friends, you know, we had no concept of religion growing up. It was sort of just, you know, accept it all, etc. You know, don't, you know, step on anyone's religious toes or whatnot. But this sort of put me and others, you know, who I grew up with at a disadvantage when it comes to, you know, defense against the dark arts, where games like Dungeons and Dragons, right? You know, we've all heard the hysteria of the 80s where people were, you know, saying, you know, it's you know, Satanist, and they're summoning demons and whatnot, and there's even shows now like Stranger Things that that sort of hint at this, because it's not just a benign, like, imaginatory endeavor you're getting involved in when you know, play a game. it is, somewhat benign, yes, but there is, on an archetypal level, there is an effect that you are invoking certain archetypes. Whatever character you're playing, you're you are venerating that archetype. Don't get it twisted. That is what you are doing. Whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you're religious or not, that is what you are doing. You are identifying with that archetype. And I've seen this really get out of hand with some people who were very into that game growing up. Personal friends of mine who I have lost touch with, but every now and again I hear about them and see them around town, and it's like I hear about their D&D games and the characters that they are, identifying with, like a Cthulhu type sorcerer sort of character, and that is a very, very dark entity that H.P. Lovecraft wrote about and is seen in shows like Stranger Things. And of course, this has a connection to Parasites. Parasites are a very taboo topic in American colloquial parlance, where nobody really talks about, parasite cleanses and, what you should be doing to, get rid of parasites. Whereas, like, Europe and most of the rest of the world, they do have, like doctors talk about this. Like, do people go on parasite cleanses and stuff like that? And here in America, we just don't talk about that. And, the concept of a hydra, these microscopic, parasitic entities that could be inside of you right now, probably are, eating away at you. That show Stranger Things really, like, puts that on display very well, where the main character of the first season, Will, gets, parasitized, and it stays with him for, the rest of the seasons, and he has this, like, connection to the dark force because of it. Gosh, it just makes you wonder how much of that is real and or like an embellishment of reality. I mean, I hear lots of talk about the connection between the parasite and dark sorcery of all kinds, that parasites change the frequency of your body and your brain so that you can fall under the thrall of a sorcerer, a dark priest class. We're blanketed by electromagnetic frequency all the time that lowers our vibration, keeps us locked down in certain frequencies, and is preventing us from developing our psychic abilities. So yeah, I don't have really any solutions other than, parasite cleansing is a good idea, you know, um, and just get away from the allopathic medical industry also. It's not good. I I can't stress that enough. I've watched time and time again them abuse not only me but uh, members of my family, and it's it's totally vampiric. And there's so many aspects of society that are also vampiric. Taxation, of course. They're stealing your life force through the currency that you work so hard for, and you ought to be able to keep it for yourself. But there's vampires out there that just won't let you have it. I watched Halloween 3 a few days ago. It's a great Halloween movie, of course the name, but it's not like the other Halloween movies, which are about like some masked serial killer. This one's it's like it's in the genre of cosmic horror, where it's more cerebral, more existential, and the threat is way bigger than just a serial killer. Where gosh, it's almost like a veiled playbook for what happened in 2020, because in the movie there's this company, Silver Shamrock, and they are giving out masks to all the children, selling masks. And there's a commercial that plays on all the TVs. There's going to be a giveaway on Halloween night, 9 p.m. And they say, wear your mask and gather around the TV and, watch the giveaway. And of course, it's revealed later in the film that there's some connection between wearing the mask and the frequency that is emitted through the television and the commercial that's played to scramble the brains of the children that are watching. And I mean, the ending scene of the main character like screaming into the phone, stop it, stop it, stop it, to the network operator, turn off the channels, it's gonna kill all these children. And it just ends with him doing that. I'm sorry, spoilers, but I mean that ending scene with him screaming into the phone, just it's such, like, that's how all of us conspiracy theorists, as you call us, felt during 2020 and those few years. Stop it. This is sick. Stop it. And we were mocked. So yeah, we live in a society ran by technocratic, dark occult sorcerers. And I think we all need to embody the spirit of Van Helsing and, like, really think about hunting the vampires. So, with that, I'll say goodnight, and happy almost Samhain here. And Samhain's not evil. Samhain is one of the 8 spokes of the year. It's a sacred day. Take care.